This crisis has been tough on New Yorkers in so many ways. And we really got to reflect now on the toll it's taken, not only in human lives, most importantly human lives and the health of our people, but also people's livelihoods. So many folks have been struggling to make ends meet and are feeling the challenges now as this second wave is bearing down on us. Particularly concerned about so many of our small businesses, mom and pop stores, neighborhood stores, multi-generational stores, places that we really cherish, and we need them. We need them for the jobs they provide, all that they provide to our communities, the sense of identity. So much of what we feel about our city is really about our neighborhoods and our neighborhood stores. So right now, we're focused on how we can help save these stores in this moment and help them through to the time we get the vaccine and we get past the coronavirus. And it's really part of the bigger discussion we need to have in the city about what our future looks like, what an equitable future looks like, what it looks like to learn the lessons of this crisis, to understand what the disparities that have been shown to us mean and what we need to do differently. So we will recover, we will build back, but we will not repeat the status quo. We can't. We have to think differently, and that includes right down to the grassroots with our small businesses. Because in truth, a lot of businesses are struggling right now, and folks who own those businesses are wondering if they can keep going. A lot of them have actually made the decision that it doesn't work for them anymore, but it may work for their employees to keep the business going. In many cases, it does work for their employees to keep the businesses going. And this is an option we have to turn to more and more in the city and all over this country, because employee-owned businesses create a tremendous reality of equity and fairness, of buy-in, of opportunity to create capital and have an ownership stake that changes the whole reality, particularly for working class folks and particularly in communities of color. This has been a real concern of our task force on racial inclusion and equity, and a focal point of how we can create a more just future for New York City. And so today we're launching Employee Ownership NYC. And I like when we announce something, you can tell immediately what it means. Employee Ownership NYC. This is going to be a systematic effort to ensure that employees have an opportunity to own, and that particularly in communities of color, we shift that painful reality where there hasn't been enough ownership and enough capital built and maintained in communities because of structural racism. And we do something about it by literally changing the rules of the game. And the city right there supporting this effort every step of the way. And we know what it means is that working people have more control over their lives. Consistently means that businesses can thrive because the workers are fully invested, but they also get a better share of the wealth that they create. This is something I think is very powerful. We've got a video here to introduce this new concept. Let's look at the video.
Always felt like I had 3 strikes against me. Female, Hispanic, no education. The more people told me I couldn't do it, the more I wanted to prove to them I could. So when I sat down with the Working World team, it felt like winning the lotto. Most of us are minorities. Some people don't even have that dream of becoming an employee owner. That's all they had to do was give me a green light. Brooklyn Stone and Tile was born. We've been in business here for about 2 years. Any custom work made out of stone, we're not afraid of attempting to do. What brought us together was a baby boomer retiring. The team really didn't want the business to close down. There's a skill set that was there and could be lost. To be able to save those jobs kind of became my mission. Where we came from, they basically are treated like robots. They were told to do, they did it, they didn't have a voice. They're now taking ownership. Everyone here is on the same level playing field. Everyone takes pride in what they're doing. Support has been a huge factor, not only the capital side of it, but in making sure that we have all the resources we need. Before we had to shut down through this COVID situation, it was very important for me to have them have some sense of security, even though there was no security. With every fiber of my being, I was going to make sure that we all came back. It's a team environment. If one person fails, we all fail. We all succeed together.
What a powerful testimony, and what a beautiful example of what it can mean for the folks who do the work to have that opportunity to own. And again, remember, they are invested in the business and making it work. And sometimes the owner or the family that owns a business has gotten to a point where it doesn't work for them to continue, but for the employees who feel it, for whom it's so important to keep that business going, a whole burst of energy and passion comes forward. You just saw it there. And good things happen for working people. Now, someone who's been working on this literally his lifetime, this is a labor of love for him for sure, and I've heard him over decades tell me about the power of employee ownership, and now he is taking this model and making it come alive here in New York City. Deputy Mayor Phil Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we all know, many businesses have closed as a result of COVID-19. Workers across the board have been hurt by this, but workers of color have been especially hard hit. Closures due to COVID-19 come on top of a looming wave of potential closures coming from aging business owners who want to retire. 85% of these aging business owners did not have a succession plan, and 80% of those wanting to sell their businesses can't find a buyer. There's a real chance that these businesses will simply disappear, and even more people will lose jobs. In many cases, as the mayor said, an alternative to shutting down a business is employee ownership. The employer can sell the business to the workers in their business. Workers who own their own business tend to work harder, and they have more opportunities to succeed economically. Workers of color benefit especially from employee ownership. They make 30% more income and have almost 80% higher household wealth than workers in other kinds of businesses. This is why our task force on racial inclusion and equity has made worker ownership an important part of our strategy for reducing the racial wealth gap. Worker ownership, often in cooperatives, has long been a standing aspiration in Black communities in this country. Former slaves tried to convert plantations they had labored on for hundreds of years into property owned by the workers themselves right after the Civil War. Marcus Garvey, based in Harlem 100 years ago, built one of the largest community movements in history on an economic platform of worker and community ownership of business. Ella Baker, head of the New York State NAACP in the 1940s and head of organizing for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference under Martin Luther King, founded and led the Harlem Cooperative League in the 1930s. They believed, rightly, that the more workers and community members owned, the more their communities would prosper. We are building on these foundations to make New York City's recovery one that lifts up communities of color above where they were before the pandemic. We're also building on an initiative started by the New York City Council, and hats off to Councilwoman Helen Rosenthal, who's been a champion of worker ownership on the council. Today, we are launching Owner to Owners Hotline, as the mayor said, as part of Employee Ownership NYC, the first big city municipal initiative to educate business owners about employee ownership and offer high-touch support for owners exploring selling their businesses to their employees. This is a citywide outreach effort to reach 20,000 business owners and connect them to the Owner-to-Owner hotline that will quickly help a business owner determine whether employee ownership would be a good option for them. Services that cost $10,000 or more on the private market will be offered at no cost. If you are a business owner in need of options, please call 646-363-6592 or visit ownertoowners.nyc to be connected to our expert employee ownership conversion partner organizations. And thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for putting your leadership into this initiative.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor Phil Thompson. Thank you to everyone at the Task Force on Racial Inclusion and Equity for making this a priority. And we mentioned this Owner to Owners hotline. This is a reality now because of the leadership of Councilmember Helen Rosenthal, and Phil Thompson's right. This has been a passion for her as well, making something happen that's going to have an effect right now, because right now companies are hanging the balance, stores are hanging the balance, and it's a chance to get that employee ownership going, and the city of New York is going to be there every step of the way. So let's welcome and thank Councilmember Helen Rosenthal.
Well, thank you, Mayor de Blasio. I'm just delighted to join you and Deputy Mayor Thompson announcing the city's investment in employee ownership and worker cooperatives. Mr. Mayor, I can still remember the time in your first year that you signed a bill supporting worker cooperatives. And you said you were so pleased to be signing the bill. Specifically, you said, "This speaks to my heart." For many years, the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative has paved the way for many great worker co-op organizations to support conversions, doubling down on that work during the COVID crisis. This hotline is a great progression of the work and how worker cooperatives and the organizations that support them can rebuild New York's economy. Worker cooperatives are genuinely committed to racial and gender equity. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. Thank you for leading the way and helping to make sure the funding was available for this initiative. And what the city can do is a crucial part of this, but we also have a desire to make this a really big new movement that will affect us for generations to come. And to do that, of course, we need our state partners. The state of New York can do so much to help spur on employee ownership. And we have a champion at the state level as well. And he also feels this as a labor of love, understanding how much of an impact this can make for all working people in New York City, and particularly in communities of color where we need to build more capital and more opportunity. So thrilled to have with us today State Senator Jamal Bailey.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor Thompson, and Councilmember Rosenthal for your leadership in the establishment of this hotline. I remember long before I got elected, I was a student at CUNY Law under the tutelage of Carmen Huertas Noble, and I learned about worker cooperatives, and they just seemed to make sense. When you are at the table, when you have a stake in something, you are going to work harder for it. And it's going to make things better for everyone. And I recall long before I got elected, I was at a worker co-op conference. And I remember hearing Councilmember Rosenthal speak with such passion and speak with such pride about the funding of the worker cooperatives that you, Mr. Mayor, you were able to establish. And I've been able to be a part of a collab team led by Deputy Mayor Thompson, where we can further the development of what worker cooperatives look like. And the reality is worker cooperatives look like us. The largest worker cooperative in the country is CHCA on Fordham Road, led by a woman of color, Adria Powell. These are real jobs for real people that make a real difference. And I'm especially heartened, Mr. Mayor, that you've done this on the heels of Small Business Saturday. Quite frankly, it should be small business every day. And when we look at worker co-ops and worker-owned businesses and employee ownership, that is a real path, a true path towards community wealth building. Some of the things that I've looked at the state level, we're looking at larger scale things that hopefully we can get done in terms of creating a state-backed worker cooperative center. Other states have them, and they have had them with great success. The reality is, everyone, is that, again, when you have a stake in the game, you will work harder. This hotline will help many business owners, help to convert these businesses to employee-owned businesses. And again, I'm very excited about what can happen. I've long looked at worker cooperatives, and you've long looked at worker cooperatives as a true way to revitalize our city and our state. Now, post-COVID, it is essential and critical and even more important than ever before to have a real economic plan. And I believe that worker-owned businesses, worker cooperatives are a true path to community wealth building. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Deputy Mayor Thompson, thank you. Councilmember Rosenthal, thank you. And I'm looking forward to continuing to get to work to build our city back.
Thank you, Senator. And Senator Bailey, first of all, your pride in the Bronx having the largest worker cooperative in the country is quite clear. So you are representing your borough well. This is exciting on so many levels. And I want to say a further congratulations. I spoke to Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins last week to congratulate you and all your colleagues on the extraordinary majority you now have in the state Senate, which I think opens the door for new and important actions to be taken for economic justice. And here's one of them right here. So with your leadership, and we're going to be looking to you, this could be actually in the aftermath of such a painful moment, could come something that truly creates a whole new series of possibilities for this city. And with your leadership, we're going to get there. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very excited about the possibilities.